Hello and good morning, everybody. We are going to go ahead and kick off the very first Headquarters Rio all call and Q&A session. We're really excited about this. And I am the one operating the video and slides, so let's hope I can do it without mixing everything up. Okay. First off, I just want to go over some rules of engagement for today's event. This is a CVR, Microsoft Teams live event. However, it's a special thing that allows us to make it available to the public if you have a direct link, which is why even if you don't have an active CVR account, and we highly recommend that you get that activated or a login, you can still access this event. The video and the audio and the slides are one way only. So you can see us and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. You can interact with us through a moderated Q&A chat function. Right now it's turned off, and we're going to ask that you wait on posting questions until toward the end, and then we have a whole group of people who are going to help answer those for you. Just so you know, though, when the Q&A does start, that when you post a question, it won't be visible to the other, 320 plus attendees right now, and it'll only be viewable to our moderators. If it is a question that is an appropriate question, an interesting question for the rest of the attendees to see, both the question and the answer, our moderators will publish it. If, on the other hand, it's something that begs sort of more of a private reply, our moderators will reply just to you so that you can see the answer, but we won't make it available for everybody else to see. I also wanted to let you know that at the same link that you clicked to get here, you can watch a recorded version of this event. Usually takes about 15 or 20 minutes to render, and after we stop the live event, and then it'll be available at that link. So if you have friends or coworkers or other IMAs who would like to see it, just let them know. Use the same link that you used to attend. So first off, I would like to introduce both our Headquarters Rio Commander, Colonel Amy Bailey, as well as our Headquarters Rio Command Chief, our first Command Chief, and that's Chief Master Sergeant Stacy Wilfong. They're both out in outside of Buckley. They're not on base today, but Headquarters Rio is located at Buckley Air Force Base in Denver. So let me click some buttons here and get them both on screen. And ladies and gentlemen, the commander and, hold on, wrong button, and the command chief coming your way.
All right, Erin, are we good to go?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Hey, thanks. Welcome everybody to our 6th virtual training event. These have been highly successful, and I'm pretty excited that Chief Wilfong and I could be here today just to spend a few minutes with you. Obviously, we're not on base. We're at my house, socially distanced as far as we can while still being on screen. So I really like Chief Wilfong. I'm just trying to sit far apart from her. First, I want to thank you for being here. I know your time is really important, so I'll keep this very short, but thanks for being here. I really want to thank you for your service to our country and also for being individual reservists, a sometimes difficult status to be in, but thanks for being here today. Thank you also for submitting your questions ahead of time. I think we received about 34 questions, and Lieutenant Colonel Carl has researched them, kind of lumped them into categories where she can answer your questions, but she worked really hard with the POCs that own those functional areas to get you the answers that answer your questions. We also have about 10 moderators on this call who can help answer your questions as well. My third thank you is to you who answered the IR survey. We had 1,400 plus people answer that survey. Really excited about that. The survey ran for a month and then closed out a few weeks ago. It's going to take us a little time to get the responses in a usable format because we purposely added several open-ended questions so that you were not limited in your responses, because we really wanted to hear what you had to say. But that's going to take us some time to get those responses put together. We don't really have a survey expert dedicated full-time at Headquarters Rio, but as soon as we get those responses put together, you will get them. My plan is to share those with as many people as we possibly can. I definitely want to get them to AFRIC and RE, AFRIC IG. That's who I'd like to get them to those as well. But I'd also like to bucketize your responses into certain functions of the people who can solve the problem. So for example, if there were lots of concerns about how assignment processes work, if it's timely or not timely, then I want to get those bucketized so that they can go to DPA at ARPC because they have the power to fix that. If it's problems getting medical appointments with your active duty military treatment facilities, which I know that is a problem, then I'd like to get them your comments in that survey to AFRIC SG, but also Air Force SG, so that they can get the word out to their active duty MTFs to fix some of their processes. You know, if it has to do with IDT lodging vouchers, I'm laughing to myself because it's a horrible, painful process, I know, and that's the feedback you provided, then that information will come to us. But I'll also provide that to AFRIC FM so that they can help us solve that problem too. So just know the results are going to come out, I don't know when, hopefully in the next month or so, but you will, every IR out there will have the access to see the results of those surveys. But thanks for taking the time to do that. All right, I want to talk a little bit about shared AdCon. Quite a few of the questions that you submitted actually relate directly to who has AdCon over the processes. Headquarters Rio and the DETs, you know, we were built about 6 years ago to be a small footprint to provide some AdCon to individual reservists. The way we're structured now places a heavy burden for AdCon on your active duty units or your DoD agencies wherever you work. And that creates a really interesting divide of who is responsible for what. So where we have AdCon is where we are trying to make it easier for you to serve. Lieutenant Colonel Carl is going to talk about this a little bit more during the session about where you can find who is supposed to do what for you on the AdCon side, but it is confusing and it is challenging for all of us. So we at Headquarters Rio have proposed some changes to the command to help with this kind of structure, but we're waiting on some resources and some approval for the changes that we've proposed. The last few minutes, I want to talk about the things and highlight some of the things and the initiatives we're working after to make it easier for you to serve. And please know every week a new initiative comes out and we make it easier. I think we're at like 55 quick wins for how to make it easier to serve. But let me just fill you in on what we're doing right now. So we know IDT lodging reimbursement is horrible and painful. The process is horrible and painful. We know that. So what we have in our control is how quickly we pay you. So we've really solved that problem and are paying people in days for IDT lodging reimbursement. But that still doesn't mean it's less horrible and painful for you. So we are participating in a CPI event at the AFRIC level. So they're running this, and it's the AFRIC Travel Reform CPI Initiative. So it includes TRs and IRs and all things travel. And so we're participating in that. So what we're hoping to have happen, I think we're almost at the end of that CPI event, but where we need to see the change is get our problems with that process into the hands of the people who can change the policies, laws, and instructions, because that's the relief that we need, that we don't have the authority to change at our level. So we're going to continue to be an advocate for the positive change for IDT lodging, and I hope we'll see some significant improvements because we're participating in that CPI event. Also, the new IR guide will come out next week, and it's a comprehensive guide on how to do a lot of things with AFI references, detailed instructions, and I know it's like picking up the user's manual for your car, right? Which I do once every 25 years. So I know that's difficult, but it is a good place to start if you cannot find a solution for what you're working on. I bet it's in the IR guide. However, if you want a shortcut for some of those processes that are in the IR guide, check out our quick guides, and they're out in the same place on our website. And we'll produce more and more of these quick guides, but it's a really simple, easy way to use directions. There's directions there with pictures on what you'll see when you're trying to accomplish things, such as file for IDT lodging reimbursement, getting your points summary, getting your career data brief. The quick guides are very easy, useful tools. So just some ways we're trying to think through how we can impact your lives in a positive way. Something I want to talk about that launched this week is eliminating, what we're doing to make it easy for you to serve is to eliminate the requirement to complete that special form that we have when you're requesting AT over a holiday or over multiple weekends. Just because we eliminated the requirement for you to fill out the form doesn't mean you don't have to work with your active duty supervisor and get their approval for you to do that. Your active duty component or DoD agency they're your AdCon. They tell you when it's okay for you to work. So if they say we need you to work on the weekends, then all you're going to do when you file for your orders to be cut, you're in the little justification block, you're going to say Bob Smith is my supervisor, here's his phone number, and he approved me to work a holiday or a weekend. And that's all that's required for that. That's going to make it easy for you. You don't have to fill out the form and attach it to that request any longer. We are trying to also get to the point where we won't require that form for split AT or alternate duty locations, but we're not there quite yet, but that's where we're trying to get after. The AFMAN limits us a little bit more tightly there, but as we move to the new way to request orders, which is coming very quickly, you won't have to do it in arrows anymore, you'll do it in MyPERS via a smart form, then all of that justification will be right there in the smart form and you won't be required to fill out a separate form. But here's the bottom line with that. You have to, again, I'm foot stomping, work with your supervisor for their approval on these items. And so all we're going to ask is you acknowledge that your supervisor approved it. Here's their name, here's their phone number, and we're going to trust that that's exactly what happened. But those are just a few of the examples of what we are working on every day to make it better for you. Do we need more pay technicians? Absolutely. 12 is not enough. Do we need an IR call center? Yes, we do, but I need people to be able to stand up an IR call center. Do we need more money so that you can go to the schools and the conferences and the CTAs and the training that you need to get to? Absolutely, we do. But those are the cases that we build every day and funnel up to Africa to fight for you. But I just want you to know from the chief and I, you are in the center of our decision-making process every day. We always say, will this make it better or worse for an IMA, if it's an IR? If it's going to make it worse, we don't do it. If it's going to make it better, we go down that path and we try and fight that fight for you. So just a few of my thoughts for today. Thanks for all you do and who you are, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Wolfong. Thanks for your time.
Again, thank you guys for joining us. This is a first ever, and we're both happy to be here and happy to share some comments with you. First of all, I want to thank everyone who submitted application for the IR Advisory Council. We've got quite a bit that came in, so we're still vetting those, and it's very important that we pick the right people to be the voice of the IMAs that are out there in the field. So looking forward to getting that team together and pushing forward with a lot of the initiatives that have come up from the last IR Council. We also have some CPI events coming up, hoping to get a better process for our gains. I'm sure most of you, didn't have a seamless gain coming into the debt. Unfortunately, a lot of that is out of the debt's hands, and we're hoping to work with our counterparts at ARPC, different directorates in there, checking your points, checking your evals, making sure everything is updated while you do that transition into the IMA program, whether that be from a TR status or from an active duty. So hoping to get all those people involved that need to be on that, and again, make it easier from the minute you get gained all the way through your duration with headquarters Rio. Another thing I wanted to communicate from being on the Command E8, E9 board, I saw a lot of IMA records that came through, and first of all, congratulations to those who made the list. It's very imperative that we communicate as enlisted our desires on what assignments we want, career path, and if it's a personal life choice that you want to remain in your current assignment, that's perfectly fine. It just needs to be communicated. So I look forward to working with each and every one of you to, work out a plan so that your voice is heard and it comes across clearly, so that you two have a chance at making the KPL, being competitive for an EDEB course, and other opportunities that the Air Force Reserve has to offer you. So thank you again. I hope everyone is staying safe out there with COVID-19 and everything going on. I definitely look forward to all your calls and look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thank you.
Over to you, Erin.
Thank you so much. I was trying to take a little bit of a cough drop there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed the very first ever of its kind IR all call. We are pretty excited about the technology that's now available to allow us to do that. I mean, we have 7,000 plus members all over the world, so it's obviously a little difficult for us to all get together at the same spot at the same time. But this is pretty close. So now it is question and answer time. The Q&A chat, we're going to leave closed a little while longer, mainly because I want you to pay attention to me. But I very well may answer your question during this part. But if not, then toward the end, we will open up the moderated chat and you can post all of your questions there. When I am finished and we open up the chat, we will end up stopping the live video feed. However, the chat remains open and we will continue to answer your questions until all the questions are answered. So in the meantime, I actually haven't really introduced myself. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Erin Carl. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for Headquarters Rio. I've been in the seat since early January, but I'm an IMA, and I think that's kind of important. There are a lot of amazing people who work at Headquarters Rio and the detachments, but a lot of them are either civilians or full-time, and there aren't a whole lot of IMAs. So I bring an IMA perspective to what we're doing here. And I do think it's sort of helped, verbalize things in a way that not just personnelists and finance people understand, not that we don't love and adore them. So speaking of that, we do have a team of about 10 moderators today. We've got members of the HQ Rio staff from travel and pay and orders, as well as staff and a couple of the commanders from our detachments. So you've got some pretty knowledgeable people here to answer your questions. And I am very grateful for their support since we're at over 400 of you now, which is just awesome. Okay, so these questions, I was going to try to put them in some sort of order, but it didn't work. So they're sort of random. So I just figured random would be our category level of organization. All right. First question that was submitted ahead of time had to do with something that Colonel Bailey just mentioned. How does an IR figure out where to go between the active component and the detachment, especially since sometimes you kind of feel like you get the runaround a little bit, right? And that's a function of that whole shared AdCon organization that Rio has. It's the way we're made. So a lot of the decisions into that type of organization that happened much earlier and much higher up than Headquarters Rio. So what that means, though, is that of the administrative control, some of it belongs to the active component and some of it belongs to us. Now, there are a few places for you to go to figure out, which place you should go. The one is the IR guide, which, as Colonel Bailey mentioned, we're about to put out a new one. The next one is a new part of the IR guide as well, and it's sort of a quick guide as well, that we will be putting out at the same time. We're calling it the IR AdCon at a glance, but basically it lists a lot of the different functions and tasks that we have to do as IRs, and tells you where to go. Is this a MyPERS TFSC thing? Is this a Rio thing? Is this an active component? And if there's a link to something, you know, where to submit it or where the guidance is or where the form is, that link is on the form. So it's pretty cool, but it was very complicated to make and we're just finishing it up. We also have training. Our next virtual training coming up is September 18th at noon Eastern. And it is, the topic of the training is how do the detachments support IMAs and PIRR? We're going to be going through the functions that happen at the detachment and sort of pull back the curtain there. And also talk about some best practices for you know, accomplishing those tasks with the detachment. And I really hope that that's going to help some of you out. But the part of the problem is when we're looking at something that the active component is supposed to do for you, you know, like your evals or decorations or support you at the medical treatment facility. We don't have any oversight over them, whether they do it or not. And that's really kind of what it boils down to. We are trying to help with a few things. I just mentioned the guides and a couple of memorandums that we're going to be putting out that you can carry with you. But a lot of it too is sometimes you're just going to have to advocate for yourself and be prepared with, you know, the AFMAN sections or AFI or the memos that we're going to put out, and a lot of the connectivity. And I'll go over the different ways that you can get information from us, that where you can find a lot of that information. Just have it, you know, pull it up on your Rio Connect app. Look, here's where it says this is what you're supposed to do. But that kind of, you can't kind of just take no for an answer sometimes. So a lot of it is you knowing who's supposed to do what, which, trust me, I've been an IMA on and off since 2002. That's not easy. But then knowing where you can get the guidance and help. I will say, when in doubt, call your detachment. And if you tried with the active component and they said it was the debt and the debt says no, it's the active component, go ahead and, before you get off the phone or reply back to that email and say, hey, can you give me a, you know, help me out with a reference, or, you know, is there something that I can show them that tells them that it needs to happen there? Okay. All right. Do that a little bit. Annoying. So speaking of which, how do we educate the active component about how to take care of you, especially our supervisors? Not only how to take care of you, but how to best utilize you. Those of us who have been IMAs on and off or for a long time, we've probably had some positions better than others that used us well. I have been there myself. So here's one of the main issues. We don't have a way to contact your supervisors collectively. So for instance, we did, there's a screenshot here of the supervisor training that we did about a month or so ago. It was highly attended. I think we had over 400, 500 people, but half of them were IMAs who were trying to learn what to tell their supervisors. But when we did it, we relied on the reserve advisors and the IMAs and the URCs, the unit reserve coordinators, to help get the message to the supervisors, because I can't send them an email. So I really do need your help. We are trying to create more and more products to inform and support and help the active component and the supervisors and commanders, so that you are a benefit to them, right? There are certainly some programs that are kind of a pain, you know, dealing with UTAPs or arrows and other paperwork things, but the more they know, the less burdensome having an IMA is. So it really does benefit you to get this information in front of your supervisors. So that is on the training page of the HQ Rio website under IR virtual training. It's called What the Supervisor of an Air Force IMA or PIRR Needs to Know. By the way, I do want to mention, I say it, and I'm sure you heard Colonel Bailey say the term IR. That's individual reservist, and that is a way of encompassing both IMAs, which are the vast majority of us, but also PIRR, the participating individual ready reserve. So you'll see a lot of stuff from us refer to IRs as opposed to just IMAs, because we don't want to leave the PIR out. So the other thing is, you know, if you don't know who your unit reserve coordinator is, you need to find out and make sure that your supervisor is in touch with that person and gets that person's support. The URC is a person in your unit that most likely it's an additional duty, but there's training available to the URC that allows them to help the supervisors do their job. If you are in the legal, medical, or chaplain career fields, you don't have a URC. So you would contact Detachment 5 for the same type of things that other career fields would use the URC for, okay? Are telework and alternate duty locations still an option as we continue to move forward through this pandemic and hopefully see a light at the end of a tunnel here soon? The answer is yes, absolutely. There are a lot of really great options. In fact, you know, Colonel Bailey and Chief Wilfong are at Colonel Bailey's house. I'm at my house in North Carolina. So we are, HQ Rio is certainly big into telework right now. And what we've been able to find out, what I think a lot of active components have been able to figure out is people can actually get a lot of work done that way. So what you need to do is talk with your active component supervisor and work out if you can do meaningful work from home. There are so many systems and support systems and functions that we have available to us now that let us do that. But you need to work that out with the supervisor. If you telework, there is a telework agreement. You can find it on the HQ Rio website under resources, forums, or on the Rio Connect app under the COVID button. You'll see the telecommuting information there. Alternate work location is also, that's totally something that can be worked out. Again, worked out with your active component. And sometimes, you know, like I used to be stationed at MacDill. If I wanted to try to do work at Seymour Johnson, I could call my equivalent type office, you know, call the public affairs office and say, hey, do you have a workstation that I could sit at for a week and do, you know, do some IDTs for my unit down at MacDill? A lot of them would be fine with that. So it's just a matter of making some phone calls, but of course, getting your active component supervisor to approve that. And then if you're using that for AT, that is still something that you have to fill out the AT special request form for. But that's because there's, you know, funding issues that could be involved. It could be that the alternate work location you're talking about is more expensive or whatever. So you would still fill that out if it's AT. But yes, you can absolutely do that. Really quickly, I do want to mention a few things that will help you do telework. One is Desktop Anywhere. It is a virtual machine that compartmentalizes part of your personal computer and allows it to access what looks just like a .mil desktop, full Outlook, all that stuff, share drives. In fact, I've been using it the majority of the time that I've been away from my unit at Buckley. It's pretty fantastic. If you have a PC, it's not too horrible to install. If you have a Mac, it's a little more onerous. But there is a help desk. Actually, the best help desk is on Facebook under AFRC Horizons Desktop Anywhere. You can join that group and get all sorts of support, but highly recommend just go to the portal, type in Desktop Anywhere, and you can do that. One of the other virtual trainings that's available on the website, I went through all the different websites that we use, you know, UTAPs, Arrows, blah, and Desktop Anywhere is one of the applications I talked about in more depth on how to get that installed. So you can check that out if you want to. CVR is the other thing that's really, really great for telework. It is a special version of Microsoft Teams, a special login, and there is now a help desk that you can hack into that will allow you to get your password activated if you never did it originally. So highly recommend you get going on those two things. It'll really help your life as far as accessing all of our IMA stuff from home. But watch that website training. You know, regardless of whether you're teleworking or not, we have a ton of that stuff that we need to access from home, and it'll really help. All right, so if you can't work at an alternate location or telework, then you may have to travel. Now, there is General Scobie, Kafir, put out an ETP a couple of months ago, which allows reservists to do reserve duty at their unit of assignment. However, you still have to get approval from your active component supervisor and commander, all right? The Kafir ETP just means that your active component unit doesn't have to run that ETP up if you're still in the red-green thing as far as travel. It can get very confusing. If, however, where you are traveling to or from is going to kick off a need for quarantine, then you might have to ROM, which is restriction of movement, which is another word for quarantine. Just usually happens at your house. So the first thing I would say is exhaust all the other options first. You know, even if you're being paid to do what you would be paid to do the ROM for 2 weeks before, and goodness, maybe even 2 weeks after, that's a lot of time and taxpayer dollars and inconvenience, to be quite honest. If it's possible for you to telework your job or work out an alternate duty location, and by the way, side note, if you have to work in a classified facility, there are actually some of them all over the US that will allow guests. It's on the COVID, I'm pretty sure I have it on the COVID page of the website. Later on, if you need that form, let us know in the chat and I'll get the link to it. But there are JRICs all over, and we have a form that will show you where they are. So you can even telework or alternate duty location, that type of work as well. But if you absolutely need to go, the first thing you need to do is let your detachment orders writer cell know that you're going to need to ROM. You know, be in constant communication with your active component unit and keep looking on the red-green list. And there's that a COVID website for DoD that will allow you to figure out the travel to know whether or not you need ROM on the beginning and the end, or just one or the other. But regardless of whether you're doing AT or RPA, MPA, or IDTs, ROM for the reserve is a separate order, okay? So I'm sorry, for AT, RPA, and IDTs, anything that comes out of the reserve budget, ROM is done on a separate set of orders, which is why we need to let the orders writers know. You can't, like, don't be, oh, I have to leave tomorrow. Oh my gosh, I need to ROM. IMA to IMA, you know better than that, right? Don't do that. Get all of your ducks in a row well ahead of time and let the orders writer cell know that you're going to need ROM so that they can draw up those orders without having to, you know, work late on a Saturday night because you didn't pre-plan. If you are doing MPA, sometimes, because MPA is funded by the active duty side, right? Sometimes the ROM is included on the order, sometimes it's separate. So again, it all comes down to being in constant communication with your active component unit and the orders writer cell, okay? All right. Can you be asked to work more than 8 hours a day on IDTs? Yes, you can. So just like if you're active duty or if you're on orders, you might need to work more than, you know, punch 7:30 to 4:30. You might have to work weird hours. You might have to work on the weekend. You might have to pull 12s because you guys are doing 24-hour ops. Yes, you can be asked to do that. No, you don't get more than 2 points a day. So that's just the way it works. But remember that an IDT, a 4-hour 1-point IDT, is a full day of pay. So if you're working 8 hours, you're actually getting paid the equivalent of 16, okay? So at least there's that. But yes, you know, the needs of your unit and the mission come first. So if they need you to work extra, you work extra. Can we elect to have 48 IDTs for our position rather than 24? No, you can't. So whether your position is a 24 or 48 IDT position is related to the position itself. It's, you know, just like, you know, what rank is going to do that position, what AFSC is going to do that position, right? All of that stuff is decided on. That's the position in which you sit. The 24 or 48 is determined by that position as well. So the important thing, though, is that you be well aware of how many IDT periods you have for your job. I just came from spending 3 years in one where I had 48 IDTs. Now I have 24. So I need to keep that in mind. And I did want to mention, you also should make sure that it's reflected correctly in UTAPs. We have noticed that it's supposed to flow from MilPDS when you switch positions, but sometimes it doesn't. So if UTAPs is acting wonky, or you're putting days through and they're getting marked paid, but then you don't receive pay, you just get a 0 LES, something's wrong. All right, so double check that. But yeah, if you move to a 24 period job, and boy, you could get so much more work done with 48. Well, that would be nice, but it doesn't work that way. And you have to do that exact number to have a good year, 24 or 48. All right, relating back to the active component, what do we do if we call to make a medical appointment and get told that we can't, or we have members who have told us that every once in a while they go to the DFAC and show their 40A and are told that they can't eat for subsistence in kind, or dental or fitness. So we're aware that this happens. And again, it goes back to, we don't have oversight over all the MTFs or the dental clinics or the fitness testing cells. So just a couple of things that will allow you to better advocate for yourself. With medical, you do not need to be in status to make an appointment, okay? You do, however, need to be in status to go to an appointment, but a points-only IDT is a status. I really kind of wish that the I didn't stand for inactive. That makes it really confusing for people. It is an active status, the inactive duty day. Fitness testing. You do need to be in status when you go to your fitness test. You do not need to be in a paid status, so a points-only IDT is fine. We are working on some memorandums so that you can take those with you, just to help grease the skids a little bit if you get pushback. You can also ask to speak with a supervisor. If a lot of times it's just they're not trying to make your life difficult. They might be new, or haven't run into a weird individual reservist recently. But just remain calm and pleasant and nice, and say, you know what, is there somebody else I can speak to, because I know that I'm allowed to do the thing I'm asking to do. Same, every once in a while that happens with billeting. If you're there on a 40A, that's a status. It's fine. But that's where the stuff like the IR guide and the memos and that kind of stuff can help. But we do realize it's an issue, and we really are trying to work on educating the active component, service units like that to know who you are. Why can we only reschedule IDTs once in UTAPs? So I actually learned something answering this question. I emailed the nice people over at the UTAP's help desk. So I didn't even know that you could reschedule an IDT. I always did option 2, which was delete it and then add a new IDT. So yes, if you are using the rescheduling function, you can only reschedule an IDT one time. However, you can delete it and then just put a new one in, and you can do that as much as you want. So it's probably easier just to delete it and add it again. Do remember there is a drop down when you're in UTAPs that says help, and there's tutorials and contact information, a help desk. Just again, a reminder to make sure that UTAPs is letting you schedule correctly, whether you're 24 or 48 for your position. And also for UTAPs is definitely one of the hinkier websites. So if you are having issues, Internet Explorer, I know it's not going to be supported after November. I don't know what they're going to do, but for right now, Internet Explorer, and then you have to have compatibility mode on for that website, and then you should be able to do what you need to do in UTAPs. And there also is a new calendar, so you might see it looking a little weird when you log in. I cover all of that more in depth in the website training that's available on the training tab of the HQ Rio website. All right, excess leave. So I think a lot of us who are on, longer term orders through all this are realizing it's kind of hard to take days off, can't go anywhere. So you might have more leave at the end of current orders than you expected to have. So one of the things is if you've got enough leave, the use or lose, that carryover from year to year was increased temporarily up to 120 days. So that's kind of cool. You're not going to probably lose any leave. There's a whole bunch of information on leave on the Rio Pay button section of the website. That's the URL. But if you have leave, there are two things you can do with it. You can carry it over, which means whatever leave you're left with at the end of a current set of orders, it goes and just sits on what's called the master leave record at DFAS. And then let's say 3 months later, you go on another set of long-term orders. There's a bunch of paperwork that has to happen, mainly because you're dealing with DFAS and it's a 40-plus-year-old system. But your gaining commander, whoever you're going to be working for on that new set of orders, they have to approve you carrying that leave over. And actually, I just saw a question on Facebook about this. They're like, why? And honestly, I thought the same thing too. And then I thought, wait a minute. Like, let's say I'm going to do 90 days of orders. And I'm like, hi, here's me. And I have 20 days of leave I want to carry over. So not only are you going to earn the leave that you would earn during those 90 days, but now you want to take an additional 20 days of leave during this 90-day set of orders. I can understand a commander may be denying that, right? But the much easier thing to do is to sell it back. And we actually had to clarify this with Africa FM before we did the reserve pay training a couple of weeks ago, also available on our website. But if you earned leave on orders of less than 365 days, okay, if you sell that leave back, it does not count against your 60-day limit. Let me say that again. If you have leave earned on orders of less than a year in time, then you can sell that leave back and it does not count against your 60 days. So the leave sell back information is on the Rio Pay website. I would just sell it back, personally. Why can't we use LeaveWeb? I know, right? It'd be so cool. We would all like to use LeaveWeb, but there's a bunch of reserve-specific issues that just don't allow us to be able to use LeaveWeb. Again, part of it is because that has to talk to the DFAS system, which is really old. However, our pay people are rocking it. Okay, so you fill out, I think it's 988. I get your supervisor to sign it, and you submit it via MyPERS. And no lie, if you have to wait more than 1 day, I'd be shocked. Those leave numbers are coming like that. It used to take weeks, but they're killing it. So I know we have to do the paper thing and it kind of stinks. And we're certainly looking at ways of improving that. LeaveWeb would be awesome. If they ever get it to handle all our weird reserve stuff, then trust me, we'll be right on it. Somebody asked, hey, if we're allowed to serve all year, why can't we do AT or IDTs in October? You can. If you go into UTAPs, in fact, I did it. I'm doing IDTs in October. You just go on your calendar, pop forward to the next year, put them in October, have your supervisor approve. If you're doing AT or other orders that begin in October, what you just need to be aware of is right there at the switch of the fiscal year, there can be funding issues as far as the money hasn't arrived yet. So it may be like right before you start when your orders get approved. So you just need to be aware that you're not going to get your orders approved, a few weeks in advance like you normally would. It might be much more last minute, and that's because the money hasn't dropped yet. I thought this was an interesting question. Is there a move toward a single DD-214 that encompasses reserve service? And I thought the answer was even more interesting. So I contacted DPT, and they're actually working on this. It's pretty cool. She said it's very, small progress, very early stages, but they actually have a weekly working group with the sister services, because this isn't just an Air Force or Air Force Reserve thing. But the idea is that they would never get rid of the DD-214. I mean, what would we do with all these DD-214 blankets that the retirees have, right? But they're thinking it would be a single form, an addendum, like a DD-214R or DD-214RC, something like that, that would encompass all of your reserve service. Pretty cool. I didn't know that. I did want to show you, if you go into MyPERS and type in DD Form 214, right? Not just DD-214, but DD Form 214. One of the things that comes up is Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve general information about the DD-214. That page is kind of hard to find, so I just wanted to point that out so you can get to it more easily. The link to it is right above, but might just be easier for you to type in DD Form 214 and get there and learn what you need to learn. Is there any consideration by promotion boards for less participation due to COVID-19? So I wasn't sure by the way this question was asked whether by less participation they were talking about a bad year or just doing the minimum when normally you would do a lot more. So I did talk to PBO, which is the promotion board section of ARPC. This is not a RIO thing. This is an ARPC thing. So the board members will always see your points credit history when in your promotion package. How they choose to score that is up to them. What they told me, which is good advice anyway, if you have a break in service or you spent a couple years on the IRR, I did that, or if you, because of COVID, weren't able to have a good year and you're up for promotion, highly recommend you put a letter in there, because if you don't, they're just then they're left wondering, well, I wonder why they didn't have a good year. Go ahead and address it. Nice and short. I'm sure you've heard a million times, but they have a minute or two to look at everybody's package. Nice and short. Provide the information. That's different than making excuses, right? But it is just best to let the board members know. But look, we've all gone through COVID, right? We've all, including the members of the board. So it's definitely, I think, going to be one of those situations that if you had a bad year, for sure, you're going to want to address that in a letter to the board. But there's not like going to be a policy or anything for them to weigh things differently as a result of COVID. Why can't IDT lodging reimbursement be more simple? I know, right? So Colonel Bailey addressed this a little bit. We know it's a rather onerous thing, and we really are trying to work on it with our process improvement stuff. The Rio Travel Office does not like sitting in a room full of your paperwork attachments and throwing them around like Scrooge McDuck because it's fun. I promise. Rio Travel is asking for that documentation because they have to. That's part of the policy in the regulation and law that they have to follow. So you're just going to have to jump through those wickets. However, we have provided training. We did a whole training thing. It was actually the very first one we did on IDT lodging reimbursement. And I've also made a quick guide for it, which you can find on the IR guide button on the HQ Rio website. It's really not that awful. And I will tell you this. I'm going to put a plug-in right here for making sure you have a username and password set up for MyPERS. You may not know this, but you can access MyPERS with a username and password. You just have to have it set up. If you go into MyPERS, underneath where your profile and the incidents and messages are, you'll see a change password thing there. So if you don't know what your password is, you can change it, get that set up. Once you do that, you can actually access it on your phone. Okay, you just use the username and password on a web browser going to MyPERS, and then it texts you. It basically uses double-factor authentication. It texts you a number code. Sometimes the banks and stuff do that now. So hey, if you just need to snap pictures of here's my calendar, right? Do it with your phone. Just upload it. Easy peasy. All right, so I'm trying to at least give you the information you need so that you know how to submit for IDT lodging reimbursement. But yes, we realize it is a pain, and we really are working to try to fix it. Can we have a central 24-hour hotline for IRs to use? That would be awesome. Boy, that would be awesome. But, you know, Colonel Bailey mentioned it's a staffing issue. We are understaffed all over the place. We don't have the people to be able to do it. However, I did give you a list of other things that you can use, especially if you're overseas or, you know, in a weird time zone and everybody's asleep here. So the Total Force Service Center, which is basically the call-in version of MyPERS, that is 24 hours. So if you have something, you know, record related, you know, something that falls under the MyPERS category that you need help with, you can call the TFSC. They also right now still have the chat function going. I think that's only during the duty day, though I'm not positive, when you log into MyPERS, and that's pretty sweet. The Rio Connect app can be a huge help to you. The Rio Connect app, if you just go into your smartphone and go to the App Store, search Rio Connect. It's created by a company called Straxis. You can search Rio Connect, download it, and then go to groups and type in the code for your detachment. So it's Rio Det and then the number. So Rio Det 4, Rio Det 7, whatever. No spaces, all caps. And you can either, some DETs only allow you to direct message group lead or DET leadership, which is great. You can get help. Some of those chat functions allow chat between members. The third is social media. You can get a ton of help. We have a Facebook page. You can message us on the Facebook page. And by us, I mean me, because I'm the one who checks it, but I'd be happy to help. But if you also search like Air Force IMA or Air Force or USAF Individual Mobilization Augmentee, there are, this is important, unofficial groups on Facebook for IMAs and PIR. Unofficial, it's a great place to crowdsource information and help, but double check stuff that you're told in there by people who actually work at Rio or the detachments to make sure that it's the right stuff. And some of us who work on staff are in those groups as well, and we certainly try to clear things up. But you know, if it's the middle of the night and you know, in the US and you're overseas and you need help, those are all some great places to go. Okay, I'm going to turn the chat function back on so you can start questioning away. Our moderators are standing by. I do want to remind you of a few things. Stay connected. Please like our Facebook page, but don't just like it, follow it and select See First. Because when you do that, every time you log into Facebook, if we've posted something, you're going to see it in your feed. All right. The Rio Connect phone app, I just told you how to download it. I expect to see downloads today. MyPERS and in Virtual MPF, please make sure that you have personal, i.e. civilian email addresses in there. We send out a Rio Buzz newsletter every 2 weeks. If you're not getting it in your personal email, something is wrong. So either you don't have that email in your MyPERS profile, and pretty soon we might start using the addresses pulled from Virtual MPF that flow into MilPDS. So same. But either you need to add that address in, or there's something keeping that email from reaching your personal email account. Some of the like Gmail and Hotmail, sometimes you have to whitelist anything with a .mil so that it pushes it past any firewalls. And I've even seen some people that just could not get the emails to work in their personal. So what they did was they created a new free email that was just for military stuff. I actually did that at one point as well. So you should be hearing from us at minimum every 2 weeks with that newsletter. I promise we work really hard not to make it wordy. We want to give you necessary information that you need. If you don't know anything about BAH recertification this summer, if you don't know that you're supposed to have next year's UTAP's calendar already in and approved, if you don't know by what date your AT needs to be submitted, if you didn't, if you only heard about this all call from a friend and didn't get the announcements about it, you're not connected to us, and you need to be. I will say, so hopefully next week, the new IR guide, and we are adding to the quick guides. Those are going to be, we've worked really hard on the new IR guide to make it more robust, lots of hyperlinks and directions on how to get to places. So make sure you use those. When in doubt, check there first before you post a question somewhere and ask somebody. The information might just be there. But just know that we're working really hard to try to improve things. The vision statement of making it easier to serve literally does factor into everything that we do at Headquarters Rio, whether it's public affairs or the command staff or training or pay or travel or orders. We're all working really hard at it. And mainly because, not just because they want to do well by you, but there are some of us, your fellow IMAs, who are there too. And so we're advocating for our kind and what life is like for us, because we're not like, people connected to military stuff all the time. Anyway, that's what I have. I'm going to turn up a little music and leave this last slide up for just a few more minutes in case you need links or anything. At some point, I will close or end the live session, but you can continue to ask questions. Ooh, the moderator's going to be busy. We're up to like 50 questions now, and which is fantastic. I love it. Keep asking those questions, and we will answer them for you. Just a reminder, September 18th. At noon Eastern is our next training, how the detachments serve IMAs. And that's it. Thanks so much.